The fluorescent lights of Stellar. Tech's 42nd floor flickered at 11:47 p.m. when Marcus Chen pushed his yellow cleaning cart past the executive conference room. Through the glass walls, he could see them, a dozen men and women in expensive suits, their faces pale with panic, their voices rising in barely controlled chaos. Marcus had worked as a night janitor at Stellar Tech for 3 years, long enough to know that executives didn't stay this late unless something had gone catastrophically wrong. He'd seen corporate crises before. He'd mopped floors during layoff announcements, emptied trash bins filled with crumpled resignation letters, and cleaned conference rooms where careers ended with a single phone call. But tonight felt different. The energy radiating from that room carried the weight of something far more devastating than individual failures. This was the kind of crisis that could destroy everything. Marcus didn't mean to eavesdrop. He was simply doing his job, replacing the trash bag in the hallway receptacle just outside the conference room, when CEO David Harrison's voice cut through the glass like a knife through silence. We have 43 minutes before the market opens in Tokyo. If we don't solve this, we're looking at a $100 million loss, minimum. The algorithm is corrupted and every backup is infected. We're dead in the water. Marcus's hand stilled on the trash bag. He glanced through. The glass at the wall mounted, screen displaying lines of scrambled code that looked like digital hieroglyphics. Having a nervous breakdown, numbers cascaded down in chaotic patterns, red error messages flashing like warning sirens. The development team can't remotely access the system, a woman in a navy blazer said, her voice cracking. Something in the virus is blocking external connections. We'd need someone physically here at the terminal to even attempt a manual override, and our lead programmer is in Singapore. Marcus knew he should move along. This wasn't his world. He was a single father who worked nights so he could be there when his 7-year-old daughter, Emma, woke up for school. He was a man who'd never finished college, who'd learned everything he knew about computers from library books and YouTube videos during Emma's afternoon naps. He was invisible to people like these, just another face in janitorial uniform, someone whose name they'd never bothered to learn despite 3 years of him keeping their workspace immaculate. But as he watched them spiral into desperation, something stirred in his chest. It was the same feeling he got when Emma struggled with homework, the instinctive need to help, even when it seemed beyond his capability. Marcus took a breath and knocked gently on the glass door. 12 pairs of eyes turned toward him with expressions ranging from confusion to irritation. David Harrison, a man whose face regularly appeared in business magazines. Marcus clutched his cart handle tighter. Emma's face flashed in his mind, her encouragement last week when he'd finally worked up the courage to take an online coding course. "Daddy, you're so smart," she'd said, wrapping her small arms around his neck. "You can do anything." I think I might be able to help," Marcus said quietly. The room fell silent. Someone actually laughed, a short, disbelieving bark of sound that made Marcus's cheeks burn. "Look, buddy," a man in rolled-up sleeves said, his tone dripping with condescension. "We appreciate your enthusiasm, but this is a complex algorithmic crisis involving quantum encryption protocols. No offense, but it's a recursive loop in your blockchain validation sequence." Marcus interrupted, his voice still soft but steady. "I could see it from the hallway. Your system is eating itself because someone accidentally created an infinite feedback loop in the verification protocol." The room went completely still. Harrison's eyes narrowed. "What did you just say?" Marcus pointed at the screen. "Your error cascade, it's not a virus. It's a logic bomb, triggered by someone pushing an update, without testing the integration with your legacy validation system. The new code is trying to verify transactions that reference themselves, creating an impossible mathematical paradox. The system keeps trying to solve it and crashes, then auto-restarts and tries again." A woman with glasses stood up slowly, her mouth slightly open. "How could you possibly know that?" "I've been teaching myself programming for 2 years, Marcus said simply. "I've made that exact mistake. Last month, actually, building a budgeting app for single parents. Crashed my laptop 3 times before I figured out what I'd done wrong." Harrison stared at Marcus for a long moment, then gestured sharply toward the terminal. "Can you fix it?" Marcus hesitated. This wasn't some hobby project on his second-hand laptop. This was $100 million. This was people's jobs, investors' money, a company's future. His hands trembled slightly as he set down his spray bottle and approached the keyboard. The room held its collective breath as Marcus's fingers moved across the keys. He could feel their skepticism like a physical weight, could sense them waiting for him to fail, to confirm their assumptions about who he was and what he was capable of. But as he worked, something remarkable happened. The chaos on the screen began to make sense. It was like reading Emma a bedtime story, each line of code connected to the next, telling him where the narrative had broken down. He traced the error back through layers of programming, finding the exact moment where the logic had turned in on itself. There, he murmured, typing a series of commands. The validation function is calling itself before checking if it's already running. I'm adding a flag that marks when the function is active, so it can't create duplicate instances. His fingers flew across the keyboard, muscle memory from hundreds of late-night practice sessions taking over. In the reflection of the screen, he could see the executives leaning forward, their expressions transforming from skepticism to something approaching awe. Done, Marcus said quietly, pressing enter. The screen flickered. The cascading errors slowed, then stopped. Numbers began flowing normally, green status indicators lighting up one by one across the monitoring dashboard. The chaotic digital storm resolved into calm, orderly patterns. Someone gasped. The woman with glasses was crying. Harrison stared at the screen, then at Marcus, then back at the screen. You fixed it. In 4 minutes. You fixed what our entire development team couldn't solve in 3 hours. Marcus stepped back from the terminal, suddenly very aware that he was standing in the middle of their crisis wearing a janitor's uniform that smelled faintly of disinfectant. It was just a logic error. Easy to miss when you're too close to the problem. Easy. The man in rolled-up sleeves looked like he might faint. You just saved this company from catastrophic failure. Do you have any idea what you've done? Marcus thought about Emma, sleeping peacefully at his mother's apartment across town, her algebra homework completed with his help before he'd left for his shift. He thought about the scholarship application he'd been helping her fill out for a summer STEM camp she desperately wanted to attend. He thought about all the nights he'd chosen education over sleep, growth over comfort, possibility over resignation. I helped, Marcus said simply. That's all? Harrison moved closer, and Marcus saw something shift in the CEO's eyes, the dissolution of barriers, the crumbling of assumptions. What's your name? Marcus Chen. Marcus Chen, Harrison repeated slowly as if tasting the words. How long have you worked here? 3 years, sir. Night shift, floors 40 through 45. Harrison closed his eyes briefly, and when he opened them, they were bright with something Marcus couldn't quite identify. 3 years. You've been here for 3 years, and I never knew we had someone with your capabilities cleaning our floors. He turned to his team. That's on me. That's on all of us. The CEO extended his hand, and Marcus shook it, his calloused palm meeting Harrison's soft one. Marcus, I want to offer you a position in our development division. Full benefits, salary commensurate with your skills, which are clearly substantial, and support for you to complete whatever education you want to pursue. Marcus felt the room tilt slightly. Sir, I don't even have a college degree. I don't care, Harrison said firmly. You just demonstrated more problem-solving ability and practical knowledge than some of our most credentialed employees. Plus, you had the courage to speak up when you saw a problem you could solve. Do you know how rare that is? But you didn't, Harrison smiled. That says everything I need to know about your character. Marcus thought about Emma again, about the conversations they'd have, about finally being able to tell her that taking chances and believing in yourself could lead to extraordinary things. I have a daughter, he said. I'd need to work days. I need to be there when she gets home from school. Days, Harrison agreed immediately. And we have excellent childcare benefits. Marcus, you've shown me something tonight that I'd forgotten. That brilliance doesn't come with a particular pedigree. It comes from curiosity, dedication, and heart. We'd be honored to have you on our team. As Marcus left Stellar Tech that night, the sunrise painting the city in shades of gold and pink, he carried more than just a job offer. He carried proof that being seen, truly seen, could change everything. That kindness could mean speaking up when silence was easier. That selflessness sometimes looked like believing you had something valuable to offer, even when the world suggested otherwise. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. "Emma's up. She wants to tell you about the dream she had." Marcus smiled and quickened his pace toward home, toward his daughter, toward a future that suddenly looked entirely different than it had just hours before. He'd walked into that building as invisible as he'd been for 3 years. He was walking out as living proof that every person carries gifts the world desperately needs, if only we're brave enough to offer them and wise enough to recognize them when they appear.